Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of our Readport for the month of April. We're your hosts here, Taros and MR, as we discuss some of the visual novel titles we have been reading this past month and sharing our experiences with everyone listening. Thank you. So, MR, it has been a very busy month in some ways, and in some other ways too. What have you been up to?
Well, welcome to all our listeners. I have to confess, I didn't have that much time to read the VNs recently, mostly because of renovations I'm running in my apartment. But I did have time to finish finally Gears of Dragoon 2. So, just to recap, this is a title in which it's all about Wanderlust. You are a dungeon diver. You go into the dungeon and then you recover some artifacts. Throughout your ordeal, you'll meet many different races, two different types of civilization. One adheres to magic, another adheres to technology. And there are some troubles you get involved with. There is a bigger conspiracy going on. So, previously, I've ended what is a technology route. So over the course of story, you more or less align with one or the other faction, still vying towards coexistence, but for whatever reason, you fulfill more quests with heroines without given a faction, right? So the first route I did with technology, and the second was with magic. And honestly, my thoughts about the routes itself, maybe there were too much repetition during the common route, but I felt like the magic route didn't grip me as hard. Although there could be also another point, whereas I feel like we had an episode about rival characters and how they drive the narrative. Okay? And also we had an episode about villains. Maybe we didn't have about rivals, but we had an obstacle, foils, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like in the technology route, the antagonist, the villain, was so good and so compelling, it kept me more engaged than it was during the magic equivalent. I don't know, something about the villain's motivations from the first route just grabbed with me more. And the dedicated rival character had an interesting, non-aggressive, non-competitive role in the story. And that was unique, honestly. You had a rival who never joined your party. He was out there, sometimes following your plans, sometimes not, but never a major obstacles. A neutral party, so to speak. You had a different antagonist to take care of. But in Magic Road, your rival was way more predictable, way more straightforward and kind of boring, honestly.
Oh.
And the same came with the major antagonist. That in certain aspects, it was way weaker, without any room for redemption whatsoever. Whereas in the technology route, I felt like the antagonist, while never truly redeemed, at least by the end, saw the error of its way. Which was interesting. I kind of like good villains like that.
Because good endings are those where you can see where the other side is coming from, right? That's what makes for good conflict, right?
Yes, exactly. And when it comes to, can I say it the best? When it comes to characters realized they were in the wrong, I also appreciate that sometimes they aren't redeemed, but they, at the last breath, on the last moment, they're like, okay, I admit I failed and I submit. And I'm like, okay, like it can work. And in my opinion, it worked in that aspect. And so I also am clear on that. When it comes to the villains, Gears of Dragoon had multiple levels. So when it comes to your rival, it was, let's say, on the ladder, it was of the least importance. Then it was the major antagonist. And as Japanese story tends to have, and you have the god character on top of it all. The force, the very force of nature, the origin of it all. I think the origin was cool in both of them specifically, and somehow they made it work that the absolute god tier enemy was different, which was the biggest surprise in my opinion. I really thought it would collapse and coalesce into the same ending and the same final antagonist, the god of everything. But no, somehow they made it work. It was interesting.
Wow.
I feel like...
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I would think that'd kind of be a given that you would expect some sort of JRPG style game to have different routes that branch off into different final bosses. I mean, that's the eventual end goal, right?
Depends, because... And maybe that's my my initial impression from the first route, that it felt like the very end last boss felt like the true end boss, right? But it isn't. So that's why I was kind of surprised in the magic end.
Okay.
I think the biggest letdown has to be characters. The heroines in the magic route weren't as compelling as I hoped they were. And ultimately, I felt like, it was just okay.
Okay.
I feel like...
I mean, not bad. It was just okay, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe part of the problem were there were more of them. In the Magic Road, there were more characters, and maybe that was the detriment to the story. You had such an interesting cast of characters throughout this entire story, and every race had a varied place in its narrative. You had, the typical elves, as that fantasy tends to portray them, but here, being a dark elf meant you suffered a curse, for example. So a slight twist to the formula. But then you have something completely bizarre. You have gemstone people. People are literally walking ruby or emeralds. Like, what? That was super cool. People infused with magic like that.
Okay, nice.
It's like, maybe at some point there were just too much of them, and those side stories and particular arcs of those characters were too spread thin. Whereas I felt like in Technology Route, it was all about more unified front, and how those stories of those side characters and heroines in that faction intersected was super cool.
That integration.
Yes, and even if they didn't start from the same place, they still congregated at some point. And I felt like, damn, that actually slaps.
Nice.
Whereas in the Magic Road, it felt like multiple different groups of heroines that were detached, weren't. There was some betrayals, but weren't. Like, it was all over the place sometimes, okay? There were two characters I looked forward the most, and one of them really delivered. There was a character that is one of the tropes that tend to appear when it comes to characters with a flaw is, I'm a member of a race that fly and is known for flying a lot and is super great at flying and doesn't fly. That's the character flaw. And you dig deep, what happened? Is it physical? Maybe it's mental problem, right? And it's an intrigue. And that character's route and story was phenomenal because it takes one of the best aspects of games with gameplay. It has a gameplay story loop, feedback loop, in which some of the skills you could perform, you couldn't until she got over her trauma of flying. Like, dang, that's super cool. Like, that was actually great when you finally get over that and you participate in some sort of magical experiments or lessons, and then you learn and you can shout from the rooftops, gravity control, grrr. Like that shit. That was super cool.
Of course, it builds up to a tailor-made ending right there for all the happiness.
Yeah, for that character, yeah, exactly. For her conclusion, how he overcome everything, the character developer, she was perfect. And sadly, that's what the only character from Magic Road I really liked. The rest were mid or disappointing.
Oh.
And that's kind of sadness.
Okay. Well, hey, that's still fine. That's you found someone you liked at least. And overall,
Yeah.
did you enjoy Gears of Dragoon 2?
Hell yeah. Yeah, I really like that, especially since I focus on the negative part, right? All those characters had active role in both routes. They just weren't explored and didn't reach the conclusion. For example, some of the exclusive characters to technology route and some exclusive to magic route.
That's the way a good route split should be. They should feel very distinct, not just in the story, but also in the gameplay, in the flow, in the pacing, in the themes.
Exactly, and I really enjoyed the gameplay. This is something you asked me last time. What part of the Gears of Dragoon felt unique or compelling and stood out to me? I feel like that gameplay feedback loop of how you felt those characters develop and how sometimes over the course of the story you reach some breaking point, a threshold or milestone, after which you develop new skills and they appear in the gameplay and you feel like, yeah, I got those skills from that side quest I did. Like, yeah, that feels great. Combined with the Ninetale, the developers' approach to customization of characters, and that game definitely kept me engaged in its gameplay. It was quirky, it was cool. It definitely, by the end of the second playthrough, I definitely felt the big numbers go big. But yeah, it's kind of I said it teetered on the edgy enough and not too much edgy with its approach to shouting the special skills and how the combat revolves about power of friendship sometimes. Okay, it incentivizes cooperation.
Yes, when
good.
needed.
I really enjoyed this title. Definitely from this developer. It is huge palette cleanser from that. I have to keep saying that, from the disappointment that Ars Magna was.
Oh,
that was one title from Ninetale that just didn't click with me. But this one, yeah, hell yeah.
Awesome, that's good. That's always good to hear.
Yeah, but Taurus, we know. I was building up to the last question. You have to obligatory ask me. Go ahead.
Yes. Now, of course, the most important question. Who is best girl?
Man, this is such a freaking difficult one because there are three candidates. Okay.
You're hedging your bets.
Yeah, but I need to anticipate, build anticipation, right? You need to hear the story. Okay, there's one it's from Magic Guild, and that's the one that doesn't have the ability to fly from the start. And the two others are the android girls from the technology factions, and both of them are also great. So there's three characters to choose from, and the magic one is just such a cool character, but sadly tied to in my opinion, the inferior route. And honestly, the highs she had doesn't necessarily compensate for the lows of that arc and that development from the other side, from the mage playthrough. And I think the title has to go to one of the robot girls, one of which is complete Chunibyo, that she keeps spouting crazy sentences, and half of the fun listening to her is deciphering what the hell does she mean by that. And her toolkit is all about not I have a shield block. It's like the goddess of protection beseech thee. I mean, what kind of skill names are those? Super cool. But I feel like, even though that is so difficult because she was such an aloof, not necessarily Kudera, but aloof Chunibyo, I think the best girl has to be the Echidna, so the leader of the technology faction. She was amazing. Yeah. I feel like the banter she had, the snide remarks she had, and that vibe toward the protagonist, super cool. And her arc and development throughout. The story was one of my favorites. She was even really good in the magic route, which is the testament. Yes, I like this character. Really cool.
Crossing
really
over the
impactful.
routes.
Yeah, exactly. She was really important, even in the opposite route, even though the major faction leaders were exclusive, their arcs were exclusive to their own routes, but she still played pivotal role in the magic endings. So I was like, yeah, that proves that she has to win. This scientifically proven, okay? Yeah, but overall, it was a great time.
Awesome. That's always good to hear. Yeah.
So speaking of great time.
Great time. Really? Oh,
yes,
boy.
That's the best transition, right? What
I
about
suppose
you,
so.
Taurus?
Because it's time to talk about what I was reading this past month. And yes, it's true. I read a certain title called Nope, Nurses. I'll be upfront, it's a Nukige. I'm pretty sure some people are already aware. It's one heck of a series. It started as a webcomic series, and it somehow spawned into a visual novel trilogy, a 9-episode anime, 2 doujins, a god-awful fighting game, and even a figurine.
Oh my god! I remember that. I think they advertised it during the April Fools? I think, something like that?
Maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head. This
God.
isn't exactly the sort of thing I kind of want to keep at lock, stock, and barrel in my mind. But for anyone who is not aware, this known as Nope Nurses, it features our main character, a college student who is afflicted with an extremely unique condition where he must get his rocks off every 3 hours, or else he has extreme crushing pain in his testicles. And this is all well and good for him in his normal life, but he falls down the stairs and breaks both of his hands. And thus, he is recuperating in a hospital that is known to be one of the worst in town, with several nurses with the most god-awful personalities. There's not really a story to this. That I basically just explained the entire extent of the story. It's a Nukige, and the entire extent of plot progressions is just this poor main character trying to survive as several nurses with terrible personalities all have to deal with his unique condition because he cannot, on account of his broken hands.
Oh god, you're not helping Tauros. You're not helping beat the allegations every single time I have to defend VNs that this is legit medium, this is culture, and this has value. And like, no, I have the
it's got value.
It has value. A core value, definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
God.
So, I mean, I'm going to be upfront about it here. If femdom is a deal breaker to you and you really hate that sort of stuff, then obviously don't bother reading the femdom Nukige title. However, I will say that despite it being what it is, this is better than I thought it would be. And I'm not saying that like in terms of the femdom get your rocks off sort of thing. This definitely had its strengths and its flaws as well. Okay. So the title's saying... What's up?
So you're saying for you it's like definitely yes nurses, right?
Yes. Okay. As far as this VN is divided, there's basically 4 different nurses, and the main character has to go a week with each of them, treating him in succession. And so the first nurse is Tachibana, and her segment of this VN is the blandest. She is a serious nurse who is very cold and really does not have time to be doing this and has to put up with our main character's ridiculous ass condition. And she has a pretty nasty attitude to our main character because, again, this is totally not what she signed up for.
I'm totally grabbing popcorn. Wait for you to talk about the best, or I guess in this case, the least worst.
The least
character.
Worst. I mean, no. But I mean, from an entertainment perspective, this chapter is kind of the blandest. And I guess that's because we have to set the stage. I mean, this is the premise.
Okay.
This is the idea. It's the introduction of you have a nurse who doesn't give a shit about you, the patient, as you have to get your rocks off. After that, we get Kurokawa, the best girl in the entire VN. She is incredible. She is one massive, toxic, walking red flag. She has a sadistic, nasty side to her that involves plenty of teasing and insulting our main character as she's in charge. She also tends to get very needy and clingy as she complains rapid fire about how the whole world is against her and she has no friends and everyone's just gonna bully her.
Yeah.
She gets extremely bitter whenever she has to think about or talk about other individuals in her life who are treating her with any respect. And it's really funny because like as soon as Tachibana gets in her face about anything, Kurokawa just instantly folds. She's a total cowardly wimp. It is so funny. All the different ways she gets just absolute toxic reactions out of just the various circumstances that go down in her chapter. And just how, I guess in a word, wild she is about everything in just the worst instances of the word.
That's not a walking red flag, that's a walking parade of flags.
She is so toxic. Yeah. And of course, our poor main character has to deal with her all the way, and he is not having a good time.
God dang.
Mm-hmm. Again, what makes Kurokawa so good is that her voice actor is knocking it out of the park. Her voice actor is 100% committed to it and is bringing so much life to the writing. Like, I don't usually wait to hear the rest of a voiced line whenever I'm reading a visual novel, because it's in Japanese. I don't understand it. I'm just reading. But Kurokawa's VA, nuh-uh. I sat there and waited to hear the rest of it because she was doing a phenomenal job with every line. All of the different emotions, all of the whining in her voice, all of her teasing remarks, all of her maniacal giggles. I'm like, oh my god. Sometimes you just gotta sit there and you just gotta admire what the heck they're bringing to the table.
That's true. In a lot of VNs, I get to say half of the character can go straight from VS performance. When they really fit the role, it just elevates the character to new heights.
And like, Kurokawa definitely would have been one of the most interesting characters, even if she didn't really have a remarkable voice actor at all. Or even if, if this title didn't have voice acting for anyone, she would still stand out. But oh my god, her voice actor, incredible. All of the ways she would drag out the main character's name, like Yamada-kun, in like that slightly evil way every time. God. I was like, oh my god, what do you want? She was absolutely the highlight of this story. Also, there's one thing I do want to say. One way in which this title is definitely lacking is that there's almost zero interactions between like any characters. This cast is small. It's pretty much, like I said, the nurses who are looking after the main character, and they all take different shifts. So you basically just get one chapter of one nurse at a time, and that's it. There's barely any other characters.
Similar to the villain of the week, but this In this case, it's the nurse of the shift.
Yes, you could say that.
Huh.
But like, you never see any of the nurses interact with each other or no other characters around. And I mean, it really kills a lot of the life out of a setting like this, where oftentimes this doesn't really feel like a hospital. Sometimes it does. And like I said, sometimes there are other characters that, lend themselves some sort of forward motion to the plot. But like, the fact that this feels so empty really hurts. So that's why when I mention Kurakawa gets a few instances of her interacting with other characters, and she makes the most of it. It's always completely unhinged to see the different ways in which she responds so bitterly to the people she sees.
You can have the Toxikov, who is more toxic.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh god.
She was incredible. Let's see. The next nurse is Yamaguchi, who is a ridiculous, over-the-top Kansai kind of attitude and accent. She is just yelling and screaming at the MC the whole time. And this is where things start going different. Because you think that with this title, Nope Nurses, you're like, okay, we're gonna get some, like I mentioned, the femdom, Nukige, where you get exactly what you signed up for. With Yamaguchi, with this whole Kansai stuff, this goes like unintentionally into comedy.
Oh, okay. So completely over the top, then it flips on its head, okay?
Exactly. Oh my god. It's really funny just seeing her words written out in that classic, casual slang, while she's yelling and screaming at you for you to just get your shit done with already because she's so freaking busy. She's got other patients and all that stuff. And the wild encounters that start happening, it's like, oh my god, I was just laughing along at that point instead of this being that kind of VN.
So she exudes that area of I'm too tired for this shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Energy, right?
It was like, I don't care what happens, we're getting through this hell or high water, and I'm like sitting there screaming, no!
God damn it. Jesus.
So that was very funny. And then we get the last nurse, Hiramatsu, who, it goes in a different direction, both with her and the whole, I guess you could say femdom attitude of the title as a whole, and then where it goes in the future. So that one's a little different, but it led to a strong ending, so I'm happy about that.
Nice.
So overall, Nope Nurses was not quite what I was expecting. When I first picked it up and when I first started reading, I thought, okay, trashy Nukige sort of thing. And I was wondering how the heck this led into such a huge sprawling series for something that was kind of niche. I figured it's like, okay, well, either there's something really good about this, like the art or writing or characters, or this is just one of those really niche interests that finds its horn dog audience and just milks them for all it's worth. So it turns out I think I'm leaning towards more of the first one, where this actually had some interesting characters and interactions, and I guess it also catered to that sort of niche, domineering sort of Nukige. It's a little hard to put into words. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of the sequels involved.
Oh god.
No, not because of that. Don't get at me like that. Come on.
Yeah, sure. I see you in New Light Towers, okay?
Oh, shut up. But that's because when the story starts really developing. And I mean, the story was something that was very lacking in the first one. So I'm like, I guess this is where we set it up.
So you long for a bit more story and character interactions?
I guess so, yeah.
What you would like to see from the sequel?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's mostly just me trying to figure out, it's like, what is this one of those diamonds in the rough sort of thing, or it's just one of those, the premise is taking it real far?
Or at least this is what you tell me you want to see, and we imply otherwise, okay?
Whatever. So we will see where this goes in the future. It's especially funny
can't
because
wait, until I hear more.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, the rest of the title is nothing really home to write about. The writing is whatever, except for Kurokawa. That gets incredible every time. The art is okay. It's unique in several aspects is the polite way to put it. And everything else about it, it's not entirely bad, but I also kind of am searching for other things to praise about it. I think it's one of those where if you compare it as a Nukige, then it kind of, is more, I suppose you could say, better than you were expecting in that front. But then again, if you try comparing it to like the AAA, huge, incredible production quality kind of Nukiges, then it's also like, well, this is nowhere near that level. So it's like, I guess it's just more so the whole idea of following up that indie webcomic strip that really exploded in popularity. And now you take that sort of indie premise and indie qualities and you light it up on a bigger scale. So I guess that's what we're getting at here. I know I'm kind of rambling and I'm not entirely sure of it myself. So in the future, we'll see more.
I mean, the biggest question I have to you then, since you already told us who's the least worst character, would you recommend not nurses to VN readers?
Oh my gosh, would I recommend it? That's a very difficult question. Again, if you are not in the mood for Inukige at all, then no, of course not, because it's really not gonna work. On the other hand,
play for the story, okay?
On the other hand, if you saw the premise and you've seen like some screenshots and you know the summary and whatnot, and you're a little bit curious, either in the excitable way or in the what the hell is this lol kind of way, then in both of those cases,
by curious.
Yeah, exactly. In both of those ways, I think it wouldn't hurt going out on a limb and checking it out. I think it would be more likable than not, in that sense. What a ride!
I don't have much to come on other than I need to reassess how I see you, Taurus, now. But, okay.
Hey, I've said it before, variety is the spice of life, and that means checking out all sorts of visual novels, especially the ones you normally wouldn't give a second glance. That's how you find the cool stuff.
That's some deep poetic stuff, huh? It's sad that you had to say it in the context of very peculiar VN, but okay.
It's not sad at all. It's glorious. That's right. You gotta reach out and take it with your own hands.
I see.
All right, but thank you everyone very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a few new things about some titles you may not be aware of, or that you're interested in hearing our thoughts about the stuff we have read. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thanks to all our listeners, and you comment in the comments. Which is better, maids or nurses? And I will be looking for those answers, okay? Take care. VNture out.
VNture out.